Tony Beets came to Canada with only $200 in his pocket, but today, he owns a gold mining empire worth around $20 million. He even spends his off-seasons relaxing in a luxury oceanfront condo in Mexico. Yet, what people see on TV only shows part of the story. During mining season, Tony still sleeps on a couch in a small Yukon cabin, and the only thing he keeps in his fridge is chocolate milk. Once, he even set a pond on fire as part of a Viking-style ritual, which ended up costing him over $30,000 in fines. Despite all that, Tony became the highest-paid miner on Gold Rush because he refused to follow any fake scripts or stage drama for the cameras. This is the story of how a hard-working, stubborn man built his fortune on his own tough terms. Tony Beets was born on December 15, 1959, in a freezing Dutch village called Wijdeens. The winter that year was brutal, temperatures dropped to -8 degrees, and nearly a quarter of the livestock in the area died. Tony grew up in a poor farming family with 4 children, and he was the third. His father owned just over 50 cows and barely made enough money to survive. By the time Tony was 5, he was waking up before sunrise to help milk cows, his small hands often blistering from the cold. For 8 straight years, he worked every morning before school, often missing over 40 days of classes each year because of farm work or emergencies. Even as a child, he chose work over everything else. The family's house was tiny, less than 90 square meters for 6 people. Tony shared a bed with his 2 brothers until he was 14. His parents worked over 14 hours a day just to keep the farm running, but even then, they barely made ends meet. The cows gave hundreds of liters of milk daily, but after paying for food, vet bills, and repairs, the family earned very little. His mother collapsed twice from exhaustion, and his father's hands were twisted by arthritis from years of milking. They made and sold extra cheese for a bit more money, but it was never enough. When Tony was 12, he shocked the village by refusing to attend church confirmation classes. Everyone else did, but Tony wanted to spend his time working instead. Around that age, he began driving the family's tractor, which was worth more than they made in a whole year. He had a natural gift for machines. He could listen to an engine and tell what was wrong. Once, he even repaired a broken hydraulic system using scrap metal and wire. But life on the farm was rough. When Tony was 13, a cow kicked him in the chest, breaking 2 ribs and landing him in the hospital. The medical bill was a heavy blow for the family, but that kind of trouble only made Tony tougher. At 16, he fell in love with a girl named Minnie, who lived nearby. Their families didn't get along, and her father forbade her from seeing any of the Beets boys after one of Tony's brothers was caught stealing apples. But Tony and Minnie met secretly in a barn, even carving their initials into the wood high up in the rafters. They dreamed of escaping to Canada, where life seemed full of opportunity. When Minnie thought she might be pregnant, it made Tony realize he didn't want to be trapped on the farm forever. By the late 1970s, the family farm was falling apart. The costs were higher than the profits, diesel prices had tripled, and milk prices hadn't risen in years. Tony's wage was less than minimum, and his father couldn't pay him more. When their best cow died and they couldn't afford a replacement, Tony made up his mind. He'd leave for Canada and start fresh. In 1980, at just 20 years old, he and Minnie left the Netherlands with $1,200 between them. Their first stop was Abbotsford, Canada, where they got jobs at a mushroom farm. The conditions were terrible, dark, damp, and full of rats. The air smelled like rot, and they earned just $3.50 an hour. Minnie, who was pregnant, earned even less sorting mushrooms. They lived in a freezing basement, sleeping in coats. Tony barely understood English and once nearly got crushed by a forklift because he couldn't read the warning signs. After 8 months of misery, both had lost a lot of weight but refused to give up. Then fate stepped in. While working construction in Vancouver, Tony fell 30 feet when a scaffold collapsed. He cracked his skull but survived. He spent 6 days in the hospital and received a $10,000 compensation payout. It was the most money he had ever seen. But what affected him more was learning that the company had ignored safety warnings. That made him decide he'd never trust bosses again. He used the money to buy tools and a truck, determined to work for himself. He soon took a job on an oil rig in Alberta, earning $15 an hour. But when oil prices crashed in 1984, he lost his job like thousands of others. With 3 kids, rent to pay, and no savings, the family hit rock bottom. Minnie worked at a diner while Tony pawned everything they owned, even their wedding rings. They heated baby bottles with candles. On Christmas Eve, their landlord gave them eviction papers. That night, Tony made a life-changing choice. He'd go north to Yukon to try his luck at gold mining. He drove to Dawson City in a beat-up pickup truck with 200,000 miles on it and only $200 left. The truck broke down 6 times on the way. When he arrived, he asked every mining camp for work, even though he had no mining experience. Finally, one camp took him in because of his skills with heavy equipment. His first day didn't go well. He crashed a bulldozer into a sluice box and caused $3,000 in damage, but he worked twice as hard to make up for it. That determination kept him employed. The first Yukon winter nearly killed him. He lived in an old trailer stuffed with newspaper for insulation. Temperatures dropped below -40 degrees. One night, while fixing a generator, his hands froze. 2 fingers were permanently damaged, and he lost 40 pounds that winter. But he survived, and by spring, he started earning good money. When a big machine broke down, Tony fixed it using parts from abandoned equipment and saved the entire season. That earned him a raise and a reputation for being the man who could fix anything. By 1986, he leased his first mining claim for $5,000 and found 20 ounces of gold, about $8,000 worth. But spring floods destroyed half his gear, costing him almost everything. A year later, a business partner scammed him, taking all his savings and disappearing. Tony had to declare bankruptcy, but the locals respected his honesty and work ethic. Slowly, he rebuilt his reputation. When he worked for another miner, he redesigned a gold recovery system that increased production by 30%, earning him a big bonus. People started to notice his no-nonsense attitude. He was tough but fair, firing anyone who slacked off or drank on the job. Through the late 1980s and 1990s, Tony pushed himself harder than ever. He survived freezing winters, lost equipment to floods, and faced betrayal from employees. But each failure taught him something. He learned how to work with permafrost, how to build better systems, and how to take risks wisely. In the 1990s, he started buying up cheap claims from desperate miners when gold prices fell, eventually becoming one of the biggest independent operators in the Yukon. Still, there were disasters, floods that drowned millions in equipment, sabotage from angry workers, and environmental issues that nearly shut him down. But Tony refused to quit. His wife Minnie took over the books, keeping the company alive during tough years. Their family became part of the business. Their daughter Monica learned to drive bulldozers at 16. Their sons, Mike and Kevin, became skilled miners who eventually managed their own operations. In 2010, Tony joined the Discovery Channel show Gold Rush. At first, he was supposed to appear in just a few episodes, earning $10,000 per episode. But everything changed after one famous scene where he yelled at a young miner, Parker Schnabel. Viewers loved Tony's fiery honesty, and the episode's ratings soared. Discovery realized they had found their star. They offered him more money and more screen time, turning him into one of the faces of the show. Over the years, Tony's fame grew, but so did his reputation for breaking rules. He brought old mining dredges back to life, often at huge personal cost. One massive project cost him millions to rebuild, but eventually, it paid off. The dredge produced thousands of ounces of gold. Still, Tony couldn't resist his wild side. During filming, he once poured gasoline into a pond and set it on fire, calling it a Viking ritual. The government didn't find it funny. They fined him heavily and accused him of polluting the water. That incident became one of the most talked about moments in the show's history. Despite the controversies, Tony became Gold Rush's highest paid cast member, earning hundreds of thousands of dollars per season. Fans love that he didn't fake drama or follow scripts. When producers tried to stage scenes, Tony told them flat out, "This is real mining, not Hollywood." Ironically, viewers liked the realness even more, and ratings climbed. His empire grew massively. By 2025, Tony owned over 300 mining claims in the Yukon. Each year, his mines produced up to 2,000 ounces of gold worth millions. His equipment fleet, dozens of bulldozers, excavators, and wash plants, was worth another $5 million. Even after paying workers and maintenance, he cleared up to $2 million in profit a year. Discovery also paid him around $400,000 annually for the show. He reinvested most of his money into newer machines and better systems, which kept him far ahead of other miners. Outside work, Tony lived simply. Despite his wealth, he still spent mining seasons sleeping on a couch, surviving mostly on chocolate milk and hard work. In the off-season, he and Minnie relaxed in their ocean view condo in Mexico, worth over $1 million. But once the snow melted in Yukon, Tony was back in his heavy boots, working 12 to 14 hours a day. He was 65 years old and still out working men half his age. Tony Beets built everything from nothing, no college degree, no fancy investors, just grit, skill, and a refusal to quit. He made mistakes, broke laws, and fought with almost everyone at some point, but he also earned respect from fans and miners alike. To this day, he remains the kind of person who doesn't care what anyone thinks. As he once said on camera, "Hard work and smart mining beat TV drama every time." And that's exactly how Tony Beets turned $200 into a $20 million legacy, all by doing things his own way.